nothing about this, or I'm going to be that random person who asks a very long question. It's going to take me a while to ask this question, so bear with me. I promise it's interesting. And I promise you it's extraordinarily important. Mr. Chadha is Canada's leading asbestos exporter, and he's putting forward the discredited propaganda of the asbestos industry that asbestos can be safely used and is a good product for Asian countries. People will die as a consequence. The so-called science Mr. Chadha puts forward has been condemned as utter nonsense and dangerous deception by reputable medical authorities across Canada. My father died from asbestos exposure on Mother's Day of this year. I'm a professor here. I am not used to breaking down into tears in front of an academic audience. And I allow myself to do this to show you how extraordinarily horrific this is. I cannot bring my father back, but I can dedicate myself to ensure that not one other person on this planet dies from exposure to asbestos. Canada is a leading exporter of asbestos. Mr. Chadha sits as a senior fellow on the Asia Pacific Foundation. We do not use asbestos in our homes. We do not use it in our buildings. We do not use it in our schools. At great expense, St. Mary's University has pulled it from the infrastructure surrounding us. I work in one of those buildings, and I watched hazmat suits be put on as people came and removed it. You have to handle this substance with extraordinary care and caution. If we are pulling it from the infrastructure of our homes and buildings, from the parliament buildings themselves, why is it okay to send it to 60 countries around the world? Mr. Chadha seems to think that it's okay. And the Asia Pacific Foundation enables Mr. Chadha to represent them. I call on the Asia Pacific Foundation, Mr. Wu, to dismiss Mr. Chadha from your organization as a senior fellow. He has no right serving under reputable organizations such as yours, with all due respect. According to Dr. Barry Castleman, a leading physician, over the past several years, a social movement has emerged across Canada wherein public health workers, doctors, unionists, and others have publicly denounced the Canadian government's leading role in continuing to legitimize the asbestos trade. The Canadian media have awakened to the issue and now give it prominence. And only now are we starting to hear from the most compelling voices of all, the victims of the most powerful stories of all, and they may yet do what everyone else has failed to do: get Canada out of the asbestos business. Mr. Wu, does the Asia Pacific Foundation want Canada in the asbestos business? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Conrad, and I hope we have a chance to chat a bit longer maybe after this session. I don't want to take too much of the time of this panel on the one topic, but I really appreciate your coming out and raising the question first by email with me and now with this audience. You will know, and others may know as well, that we've launched an online conversation on the issue of asbestos exports to Asia. It's on our National Conversation website, nationalconversationofasia.ca, and on that site we have posted a lot of background information from including very prominent anti-asbestos exports advocates, and of course we have allowed for postings from visitors to the site, and I think you will see very quickly that all of the postings, certainly as of a few days ago, all of them have been anti-asbestos exports. We do this because we feel that we cannot duck the issue of asbestos exports to Asia. It's part of the Canada-Asia relationship. Many people are deeply concerned about it, including Conrad, and it's something that Canadians have to wrestle with. Now, with respect to Dr. Chada, his term with us comes to an end in 2 weeks' time, so he will no longer be associated with us. But let me just clarify that we never appointed him to be an associate with the foundation on the basis of his business interests, but because of his work broadly related to the Canadian community and of education initiatives related to Canada organizations. But you can rest assured that his association will be coming to a natural end as our fellowships do. Now, I want to say that while we have launched this conversation on asbestos exports, I'm very sensitive to the fact that this is not just an intellectual discussion for you, Conrad, and maybe others in this room as well. It's a personal matter and a very painful matter, and so I don't want to treat it as some kind of glib intellectual exercise. But if I may try to broaden the issue a little bit so that we can get others involved in this debate. The whole question of asbestos exports to Asia or any part of the world for that matter raises some questions around different standards of practice, different standards of health and occupational safety, of environmental protection, of child protection, child workers, a whole range of issues that we encounter every day, every minute in our thinking about Canada-Asia relations. You only have to spend 10 minutes in India, or in Vietnam, or in China, or any part of Asia to realize that they do things differently from us. They do things differently partly because of economic and political conditions. Sometimes they do things differently because the governments mandate things to be done differently. They don't wear crash helmets when they ride motorbikes. Smoking is allowed in hotel rooms and on airplanes and so on. I'm not trying to trivialize it, but a whole range of issues where in our relationship with Asia, we are going to encounter some difficult health and safety and perhaps even some of you will consider moral issues. We don't want to duck these issues. They are critical if we want to develop a deep and lasting and sustainable relationship with Asia, and we have to come to